I just wanted to say that like this software, and I understand that it's niche, has just been such a godsend to me that I'm like really excited. I want you to be really successful because I need you to keep doing it and supporting it because I need it. So
Well, we want to be really successful
yeah.
too. Gina, it's
Hey.
so great to have you. You've been a Visibox user for a while now. We've exchanged emails and messages over time, and we thought it would be great to kind of get you on and give you a chance to talk about kind of what you're doing and kind of your musical journey. Introduce yourself briefly.
So my name is Gina, and I front what I consider to be the best, most authentic Taylor Swift tribute band, at least in the Midwest.
Nice. Burning Red is the name
Mhm.
of your band.
Yes, Burning Red.
Uh, and um, and you've done a bunch of musical things over all these years. You've
Mhm.
certainly collected a number of guitars,
Yes, I have.
beautiful guitars behind you. Talk to us sort of about kind of your journey as a musician and what led you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been playing music on stage in front of people, since I was 18 years old, long before I was able to, old enough to drink in the bars, I was playing in the bars. And so Taylor Swift and I have that in common, just being kind of the youngest person in the room and really, and also being female and being instrumentalists and vocalists and just really having to prove ourselves. So I kind of came up in the alt rock scene where it was just a lot of hustle and touring in vans and songwriting and, creating records, like, bootstrapping everything. I did luck my way very young into a couple of major label bands. I played bass in Veruca Salt and did vocals. And then I also played in a very short-lived project with the Courtney Love. It was sort of a project that she was doing to try to get out of her whole contract, and she was working with another label to try to put together what she called a super group, which was half Veruca Salt and half Hole.
Mhm.
So I was playing with Patty Schemmel as a drummer in that band, and that was really fun. But I was very young; I was like 22 when all this was going on. So yeah, I just really kind of bootstrapping around the Chicago music scene and cutting my teeth and learning my instrument. And back then it was, we did not have wireless in-ears. We was all floor wedges and big loud rock clubs. And, I would say that it was extremely low tech, mostly
Mhm.
analog.
Mhm.
Um, so what I'm doing in this band now is definitely requires a much higher tech touch.
So, one of the things that you've done that's been a little higher tech is incorporate Visibox.
Mhm.
We'll get to that in a moment, but sort of talk to me about um, the other things that you've done with this band and sort of the evolution of like, why did you decide to start a Taylor Swift tribute band?
Yeah, so I started this band literally because I'm a Swiftie. Like I'm a tried and true, dyed in the wool, legitimate Swiftie. And I had taken a long break from music to have kids and raise a family, go to school, get a master's degree and all that. And my husband, who is also a musician, we had been in bands together and we had taken collectively together a long break from music. And then a few years ago, as I was getting like the itch to do it again, I was like, I have to do something musical again. That's like it's my life's blood. And he said to me, why don't we do a Taylor Swift tribute band? Because all you play is Taylor Swift. All you think about is Taylor Swift. Like I'm autistic and she's my hyper focus. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Some people with autism, they have rooms full of trains. My walls are covered in Taylor Swift. So he
Sure.
was like, this feels like a really natural fit. And I'm like, yeah, you're totally right. But like, would anyone want to see that? And he was like, yeah, yeah. And he really convinced me. And we started out just the two of us. And he and I were just doing acoustic, like playing, on the floors of bars. And I quickly, because I'm not the kind of person who can just half-ass anything. I just quickly realized that I needed to be able to play her full catalog. I wanted to do the big stadium, arena songs, and I knew that we needed a full band first of all, and you are going to need some tracks to pull all that off. I
Mhm.
mean, she's using tracks, every artist is using tracks. So it really started, the journey down the tech road started with me trying to figure out Okay, once again, I said I had come from a completely like kind of analog world. I didn't, and I'm a technophile in that I can learn anything, but I didn't even really know where to start. And so I just literally got on and I was like, okay, how are people doing backing tracks? What kind of systems? What can I do at more of an entry level without investing in all of this technology and all of this equipment? Where can I start? And it was really starting with a system called Stage Tracks. That was like the entry point for me. And Stage Tracks was so beautifully, first of all, user friendly, super intuitive for me. It was scalable. I could start with like, okay, right now we're just using click tracks. Okay, and then I'm going to add in, some violin that she throws in these songs. And once I started building our whole backing track system, then I started to realize that, well, what would make this really authentic is, Taylor uses a lot of video visuals on stage, and I need to figure out how to get some video happening. And Stage Tracks can run MIDI, like time coded MIDI. I did not have a clue what MIDI was when I started this, but again, like I said, I feel like I'm autistic, and if I'm like a dog with a bone. If I decide I need to
Figure
know
it out.
something,
Yeah.
I'm going to learn how to do it, especially if there are entry points for people like me. And so once I started figuring out MIDI time code for lighting systems, I was like, okay, is there a way to do this with video? Because that's what I really want. Like lighting, I could leave lighting up to, the lighting guys at the venue, but video is where I really need it to be. And I was searching and searching and searching and thinking, there's no way I'm going to have to hire some sort of AV person. In the beginning of this, again, it was bootstrapping. It's very successful now, but in the beginning, it was very much everything's DIY, and it's me DIYing it. So I'm on the internet searching, and one day, last summer, I stumbled upon Visibox. And since I knew MIDI time code, I figured out how to integrate your stuff with Stage Tracks. I figured out how to make Stage Tracks fire off all the videos that we need. And it was like, it just cracked the whole thing wide open for me. And people constantly compliment us on how high caliber our show looks. People have said to us, your show looks like a real concert, because especially in these places where we've gotten these giant LED video walls, I mean, it looks really cool and really special. And I think we're one of the few acts that's doing something like this. And you've just made it so easy. And I'm so grateful.
Ah, well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's why we created Visibox, was to be easy and adaptable and flexible. And I mean, it's interesting to hear that you're connecting it to video walls. Do you
Mhm,
usually bring a projector with you if they don't have a video wall? And
mhm,
so one of the features of Visibox is that it can kind of quickly adapt to whatever aspect ratio of whatever thing it's hooked
mhm.
up to. And so that makes it nice to not have to think about it. It's not a thing that you would think that you would have to think about it, but for anybody that's done it, you
Yeah.
all of a sudden realize like, oh, we need to go re-edit all of the video that we've ever made for this thing. And with Visibox, you
Yeah.
don't. So yeah.
We've never had any issues like that. And honestly, it didn't even occur to me that there would be, because it's just
Right.
worked so flawlessly. I
Yeah.
mean, I can tell you the applications that we've used it. For the most part, we are playing good sized theaters and a lot of performing arts centers, a couple thousand seat venues, amphitheaters, where they either have their own projection system that's already going. So all we have to do is literally HDMI into their input. We are also, over the summer, we added another screen that's actually built into my piano shell. So even if for whatever happened, if the venue, if there was no way to run video through them, then we at least have the video playing on my piano shell. And that's been a really nice feature. But we basically have a splitter and we duplicate it, so it's the same show going on my piano as to what's going to the house video system. And they have done they're, projecting through the house system. They've done LED video walls. In the cases where they have nothing and we can bring something, then we have brought, because of you and your video on short throw projectors, I was able to buy a short throw projector from eBay for literally $130. Okay, that was the investment I had to make. And we just put up one of those giant blow up screens, $80 on
Oh yeah.
Amazon. And we're
An
projecting onto a
inflatable screen, right?
literally,
Literally.
and a giant 20-foot inflatable screen with a short throw projector, and that's worked out in a pinch. So the application we've just never had any problems with getting videos in some way.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the process of showing up at a venue, not quite sure how it's
Mhm.
gonna work. That
Well,
they
I do advance calls with every venue.
Yeah,
So I go in prepared, but sometimes we got to a theater a couple of weeks ago, and we were just glad that we happened to have our projector with us, because we got there and found out their projection system had just died.
right.
So we were glad that we had that flexibility. But yeah, I find being prepared really helps, but we've just been in a really lucky situation that really everywhere we've gone, we play venues that are nice enough that they can usually accommodate video in some way, and they know how special it makes the show.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So there's this sort of interesting concept. You referred to kind of like bootstrapping your band, because when you started doing it, you had no money, you had no resources.
Mhm.
In addition to learning all the songs, you needed to put together the whole stage show and stuff like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And now you're much more established. You're out playing, and people kind of, it's this, that catch 22 of like, people know what they want once you're already presenting it, but it's hard to present it until you can
Mhm.
get people to buy it. But
Mhm.
now that you're doing it, are you coming up with bigger plans or bigger ideas or new ideas for the show?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always thinking about, we're constantly, because Taylor keeps releasing new music. That's just very
Turns out, yeah.
unlike many tribute bands who've got a limited catalog to work with and it's established. I mean, Taylor, she could release a whole new album with 35 songs tomorrow and we'd all be thrilled, but it would mean, okay, now I got to do all these videos. And we really do try to create as much as we can. We don't just use sort of like moving visuals. Like I really try to go in and create, actual relevant clips for each part of the song. And so I spend a lot of time on that. I spend a lot of time updating things if I feel like, it could use a little refreshing. I did just have an idea early this summer where I was like, I need to take advantage of the fact that people are coming in at doors and then they're just sitting there, they're seeing the stage. Why aren't they seeing some sort of advertisement that we're running? I want to make sure they know that the merch booth is out there. I want to make sure that they know we also bring a whole photo booth experience, like a red carpet style step and repeat with, great lighting, and they get the photos right on site. We bring all of that as the band. So I want to make sure that they know that that free photo booth is out there. So I'm running sort of our own kind of commercial ads prior to the show starting. And then after the show is over, we can run things too. And that's just a really great way to communicate with people without me having to say stuff on the mic.
Yeah. It's like each of your shows is a little Taylor Swift fan conference or something,
A
it's
hundred
like
percent. Yeah, it
so that
absolutely
it's
is.
and
Yeah,
I've seen clips of your shows. You really get that vibe. I mean, you're a fan,
Mhm.
and it seems to be, I mean, tribute is a good name for the type of act that it is.
Yeah, we're trying to really be super respectful, playing her music in a way that I hope that she would, find satisfying. But also the thing with Swifties is there's such a fan culture there. And as a fan myself, I just really wanted to honor and respect the culture that Taylor Swift has created and fostered. And to me, it wouldn't be a tribute show unless we were doing right by the fans by giving them these extras and trying to just replicate as much as we can on a smaller scale. And I will say that as a tribute band, we take a little bit different approach to doing this, because right now, if you go and look for Taylor Swift tribute bands, the world is lousy with them. Like there are a lot of them now. The market is getting very saturated with that. We were kind of one of the first in the country, and everyone realized it was kind of a good idea. But my approach has always been musicianship first. And I named the band Burning Red because I'm a natural redhead. And of course, it's a Taylor Swift lyric, Burning Red. Taylor also loves redheads. She features redheads a lot in her work. She is a redhead on screen as often as she can make herself. So I just loved the idea that, I would be able to pay homage to her love of redheads through this band. But I never wanted to try to impersonate her. So I dress in a way and I try to have the visuals appear in a way that you really are getting that Swiftie community experience. But people know that I'm not like dressing up and putting on her exact, you know, no one can replicate her clothing for real because she's wearing like Roberto Cavalli, like $20,000 dresses. So to me, it always looks like kind of a carbon copy imitation if you're trying to do it a little too exact. And so we just wanted to make sure that when people are coming, they're seeing a live band. They are seeing musicians who are total pros, who know the songs inside and out, who have paid really close attention to the tiny details in each song to make sure that we are doing them the right way, and that we're not just going like, well, we'll play the song in a way that, you know, is however we feel like doing it. And we did have that problem in the beginning of the band when we were auditioning folks. You know, drummers would come in, they'd play a straight beat and go, oh, it's this a song. And I'd have to be like, I got to be pedantic about this. That's not how her drummer does it, you know? And so we have just tried to honor that Swiftie culture by really dialing in the music. And we've had people say that when they close their eyes at our shows, they feel like they're at the Eras tour. And so that's, to me, the biggest compliment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. Sort of the whole phenomena around being a, you know, oftentimes we think of like cover bands, and, you know, I went to music college, and that was sort of one of the routes, was being in a GB band and playing weddings, you know.
Mhm.
But this is different. This is there is, that's sort of general business, as GB stands for. And it's about sort of a low common denominator, playing music for everyone. But this is something different. It's still about that. It's about the homage, about the fanage.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and so, you know, it kind of generates a lot of that same audience energy that
Mhm.
you are kind of inheriting from Taylor Swift, and
Yeah.
it's
Well, I
kind
mean, it's
of
the fans are bringing the show like just as much as we are. I mean, we're really making sure that we're delivering on a promise, you know, for them to have a great time and hear these songs played well, and, you know, lots of energy on stage. But it's amazing. And I don't know if you've ever been to a Taylor Swift concert, but, you know, people talk about it, how loud it is, and how people are scream singing every single word, and they're dancing the whole time. And it's just like, from the get-go, it's an experience. And, you know, these venues that we play in, they're thinking like, you know, oh, it's just a cover band, but then we come and this whole culture comes with it, and it's so magical and so fun. And I really think we were doing a good job on the music in the beginning, but adding Visibox, adding the visuals into this has just ratcheted it up in a way that I feel like people really feel like we are being even more respectful to her product by having this element that is so, it's so much a part of Taylor's shows. And for us to be able to replicate that in kind of a DIY way at our level, it really feels like the fans are seeing that as like, okay, you're respecting our time and our money by giving us this extra thing.
right. And you can kind of echo a lot of those references,
Yeah.
and underline the themes.
Mhm.
Are you using Visibox camera clips at all? Are you like connecting cameras to it and doing close-ups of performers and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I wish that we were doing more of that. I will tell you, like, I got a little intimidated, and we had a conversation about a year ago about this. So the way that we have Visibox running right now, so Stage Tracks is, like I said, is sending all the signals, and Stage Tracks is sitting by our drummer, because our drummer is kind of ultimately the one controlling the kill switch. Basically, our tracks just run straight through unless I look back at the drummer and say, I need a minute, or, you know, I need to
So
talk to somebody.
your drummer is triggering Visibox playing. He's triggering
No,
Stage Tracks, and Stage Tracks
he's
is
he,
triggering.
I wouldn't even say he's triggering Stage Tracks. I will say he is the in case of emergency. So
I see.
Stage Tracks is basically just running, you know,
Uh-huh.
straight through
Yeah.
seamlessly. But if we have to stop for some reason, he can hit the kill switch
Okay.
and it stops.
Got it.
So the whole system is by him. And so my MacBook, where we're running the camera clip from, I found that the only stable camera view I could get would just be the internal camera from the MacBook. And so since all of this is sitting by him, we have what we call drummer cam. And so every single show because we have, by the way, one of the best drummers like in the world. The way that we got him is just ridiculous luck. He's actually from Brazil, and his name is Adriano Barbosa. He's played in stadiums in front of 80,000 people. He is like wicked, high level, talented professional drummer, and people love to watch him. And so what we do at certain parts in the show is, you know, we give him a little drum solo and we cut to the drummer cam and he goes up on the big screen and it's him back there just going absolutely crazy and people love it. I wish we could have more cameras situated in more places, but I know that like that's just kind of getting into a place where I couldn't quite figure out how to make that work, especially because everything just needs to run straight through and I can't have anyone like triggering different cameras. So if we only have the one camera clip,
right,
then the drummer gets it.
right, and yeah, and it's part of setting up the whole system every night. You're not quite sure
Yeah,
where a guitar camera would be aimed or whatever,
right,
but
right.
yeah. Well, we've the new version that's coming out of Visibox has a whole bunch of camera stability fixes and stuff. There was a few things about the camera stuff, like when it wasn't working, it would it kind of had no way of telling you that it wasn't working. So some new features coming out, so I'm really excited about that. And so you may find it to be a little bit more stable and workable
Awesome.
now. So yes, put a camera on everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. And I thought about that too, like, you know, because I'm constantly all over the stage and not super choreographed in my, and I'm just kind of going wherever I feel like, you know, I need to drop down or dance, you know, in front of someone who's trying to hand me a friendship bracelet or something. So that's the one part I haven't quite worked out in my mind is where would I point the cameras if they're going to be situated everywhere. The drummer's easy because he's not walking around. So
right,
easy to keep it on him. But if there were some way, you know, the thing about Visibox is that it's such a DIY solution, that's what I needed. I needed this to be simple. I needed it to be DIY. I can't pay anyone to come run the video. I can't pay anyone to even, I'm the one setting it up at the show because most other people are just like, oh, I'm afraid of it. You know, it's easy to me, you know, but a lot of other people don't take to technology as quickly as some of us do. So me and my husband know how to do it, but for the most part, you know, even we've got a huge crew of like 10 people. We've got like 10 stage techs helping us get it set up for shows. But even the stage techs are like, Gina, you're going to do the video, right? Like, yes, I'll do the video. So everything has to be real simple because if it were more complicated, if it required more equipment, more setup at shows, I probably couldn't do it. But that's why Visibox has just been such a godsend because it is just so easy and intuitive.
So you figured out Visibox. It feels like sort of achievement unlocked, right? You were talking about a couple of years ago when this seemed like an unsolvable problem. So if you're talking to other bands, other performers, what do they need to know about Visibox? Like what help me help them unlock Visibox?
Yeah, I mean, I would start with, I think you got to know whether they're running tracks. Now I know that there's other ways to trigger video and you can trigger it through MIDI and if you want to manually trigger things, then that's kind of a different conversation. For our application, it's going to have to be triggered through MIDI timecode. And for that, you're going to need tracks or something going in order to trigger this. And that to me is if you're already using tracks, especially something like stage tracks, and I'm assuming Ableton and all that, but I don't know about Ableton. I've stuck with stage tracks. If you're using stage tracks, like this is a real quick and easy leap. And I'd say like visualize, what do you want happening behind you on stage? You know, do you want it just to be the venue's back wall, or do you want movement happening? Do you want to be able to cut to clips in the song that are relevant to the part that you're singing? Do you want to be able to cut to a live clip of the drummer? If you want all of that and you're running tracks, this is like such a simple transition in my mind. Having the tracks already going was simple. And I know you've done a tutorial on stage tracks and that like beautiful integration. So just like with Visibox, I will sing the praises of stage tracks all day long. So if anybody wants to figure out how to get started on either of those things,
yeah. I mean, the commonality there is that stage tracks is aimed to be a simple solution for controlling audio tracks on stage, backing tracks in particular, and you can either run it on a Mac laptop or a Mac. I suppose a Mac desktop, although laptops are usually a little better for live performance because they have a battery backup built right into them, because we've all been in those situations on stage where weird things happen and people kick things out. And you can also run stage tracks on an iPad. Are you running it on an iPad or are you running it on the
We
laptop?
are. Yeah,
Okay.
we've always run it on an iPad. Yeah, we have an iPad that we call like our Stage Tracks host, and
Mhm.
that's the brains of our whole operation. So we run Stage Tracks on an iPad, and then we run that like MIDI into my laptop, which is running Visibox.
Yeah. Cool. Um, what other questions do I have for you? Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there. It's exciting to hear what you're doing. Mm, 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 mm.
I'm just such a big fan. It's
Thanks.
like I said, I really want this to do really well. I want Visibox to sell, 1 billion copies because I want you to stay in business because I need you.
Well, I want those things too. So
Mhm,
we have that in common.
mhm,
So it sounds like you're using Visibox as part of your creativity on stage, right?
mhm,
A tribute band is not just about playing the music of that artist. You have to kind
mhm.
of figure out how you're going to express that and enhance that.
Yeah.
Um, so for musicians that have had it sort of cross their mind that maybe they would do something with Visibox, or no, do something visual on stage,
Mhm,
what
mhm.
do they need to know about Visibox?
Well, let me just say this. I think that one of the interesting ways that we're using visuals on stage is to pull focus so that we can do other things. For example, being in a Taylor Swift tribute band, obviously costumes and costume changes are a huge part of what she does and what we do. I mean, you could fill the Grand Canyon with articles written about the different costumes she wears each night, and she needs time to change costumes. And so what's happening on her stage a lot of time is it's either the dancers pulling focus or the band, or sometimes it's just straight visuals that are telling a story while she is off, doing something else. And so this has been such a huge game changer for me because it allowed me to do costume changes while using the video to entertain the crowd while
Mhm.
I'm off stage doing something else. And these moments are so dramatic. We do, and if you're up on Taylor Swift culture and the Eras show, there's a transition that she does called the rep intro, and it's introducing the rep era. And what's happening in the visuals is that it's like flashing these snakes and all of these hissing sounds, and the whole stadium is black, and it's building all of this tension. You couldn't do that if the stage were just dark. You couldn't do that if the band or dancers were trying to pull focus. It's very much a moment where everything kind of has to go quiet and you're just letting visuals tell a story. And so, me being able to do that, bring video in to give us these transition pieces, really changed our show and elevated our show. And bands could start to think about, maybe instead of stopping and talking between songs, maybe there's some other drama that we could add, maybe think about theater visuals in that respect. I like to say that our show is, part rock, pop concert, part theater.
Yeah.
Um, and so when you start to think about your show being a little more theatrical and doing those things and pulling focus and using visuals to tell more of a story about what's going on, then you know that you've got to have visuals and you got to have an easy way to deploy the visuals.
Right.
So
Yeah. And
yeah.
I guess, yeah, and there is another step above and beyond just adding visuals to your show. It's the creativity of how you're adding the visuals to your
Mhm,
show and the story that you're telling your audience.
mhm,
And part of that is this sort of theatrical storytelling of
mhm,
thinking about like, are the visuals kind of coming to the foreground? Are they
mhm,
staying in the background? Are they upstaging the musicians, or are they behind what's
mhm,
happening? And you can do a lot of really interesting stuff with that.
mhm.
I mean, certainly before the band comes out on stage, the visuals kind of come to the foreground, and
Yes.
you could certainly advertise things, but you could also create this tension and excitement as
Mhm,
you've got a I don't know if you've got like a Beatles tribute band or something like that,
mhm.
and you're showing footage of like an excited crowd and screaming girls and stuff, and it's kind of telling that story, and then the band comes out to
Yes.
the already screaming. um
Yes.
Likewise, I've also, in some of the work that I've done with my music and for other bands that I've done stuff for, there's really amazing power to having dancing energy
Mhm.
on the screen, even almost if it's not in time with the performers, it
Yep.
feels like it is, and the audience wants to get up and dance too, you know.
Yes,
And
100%. We have added some dance video to our stuff, and originally I was like, oh, what if this? How would I sync this directly to the beat? That's getting a little complex. What I realized, honestly, my trick is to slow it down.
yeah,
Do everything in slow-mo
sure,
dancing, and
yeah,
it feels more dramatic, and yet
right,
it feels like a
and it
party's
doesn't,
happening.
yeah,
It works beautifully, and yeah, it definitely adds a lot of excitement to the performance too.
right,
And we try to do that thing where sometimes it's helping us tell the story, sometimes it's telling a story while it's pulling focus so we can do something else. Sometimes it's very much just background. I mean, I do have a song or two where I just need it to display some sort of beautiful visual behind me because the focus needs to be completely on me, because let's say I'm doing a solo acoustic song. I
yeah.
don't want a big video playing behind me. I just want, something to create like a pretty atmosphere behind
Yeah.
me.
And even like focus plays into that, right? That
Mhm.
that if you blur the background, the video that's in the background, it
Mhm.
moves backwards. It
Yes.
goes away, and so
Mhm.
it is less likely to pull focus. So it's this really interesting thing of kind of creating this more three-dimensional space
Mhm.
with just two spaces, right? There's the
Mhm.
performer. I mean, even as a solo performer,
Mhm.
you can decide whether the video is kind of coming forward and
Yeah.
competing or even interacting with the performance,
Yeah.
or whether it's just staying very ambient and background. And
Mhm.
I saw a show over the weekend, and they had these great visuals behind the performers, and it was all super blurry. I think they
Mhm.
just took the whole camera and put it out of or the whole projector and put it out of focus, you know.
Mhm.
But it worked great. Like
Yeah.
it never, you never had to worry about it coming too close to the front, you know.
Right. Right.
And you know, when we think about, oh, putting a video behind the performers, you think of like high quality video, and it doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily need to be. It can be just sort of vibey, uh,
Yeah. There's something to
blur.
be said for just creating more mood or just creating additional movement to feel like more is happening than there is, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Well, Gina, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me. And
Yeah.
I'm always excited and interested to hear how people are using Visibox. We really designed it as a kind of generalized creative tool, and it's great to see people using it in all sorts of different ways. And just really, it warms my heart to hear what
Well,
it's
like
doing.
I said, thank you. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for creating the tool. Thank you for being so great with customer service. I know I've had questions and you've come right in and helped me answer them. You can feel very lost when you're learning a new technology and you just don't feel like you can get any support, just to get over to some of the humps. And you did help me kind of unlock a few little things in the beginning that really helped me like take it to the next level. So just always appreciate that.
Yeah, awesome.